OpenAI. It's a name that seems to pop up everywhere these days. But rewind to 2015 when it all started as this sort of experiment. Two big ideas. First, they wanted artificial intelligence to benefit everyone. No exceptions. And second, they were incredibly cautious about safety. By October 2023, the company wasn't just some startup. It was valued at $80 billion. Can you imagine? And with that kind of scale came ambition. And naturally, complications.
Right. And speaking of ambition, then there's Sam Altman. He was one of the co-founders, but he took charge after Elon Musk stepped away. And under Altman, OpenAI pumped out innovation after innovation, including ChatGPT. I mean, it single-handedly rekindled everyone's obsession with generative AI, but it wasn't all smooth sailing, was it?
No, not at all. While Altman was phenomenal at pushing the company forward, like convincing Microsoft to invest billions, he wasn't without controversy. His laser focus on profits started to clash with OpenAI's original mission. Remember, the company is structured in this very unusual way, where a non-profit essentially governs it, and the board has significant say over its direction. And that governance led to some serious tension internally.
Oh, totally. And this is where it gets so interesting. There's Altman all about scaling fast, moving fast. But then you have Ilya Sutskever and others on the board really putting their foot down, saying, hold up, this safety stuff matters more than profits. It's like this huge clash of philosophies, you know?
Exactly. And Sutskever wasn't just disagreeing for the sake of it. He, and reportedly other board members, were worried that Altman's leadership style was sidelining important safety precautions. What made things worse was Altman's profit-driven narrative. Some at OpenAI were discontent, seeing this move away from the non-profit's careful AI safety stance, prioritising these cutting-edge product releases instead.
And let's not forget, OpenAI's mission wasn't just to make AI super advanced, but also to make sure it doesn't, blow up in everyone's faces. So it's no surprise there were cracks starting to show in Altman's leadership. But wow, the boldness of that board tension. You could feel something brewing, couldn't you?
Oh, definitely. The cracks were there, and it was only a matter of time before things came to a head. Altman's decisions were forcing these internal divisions wider. A company that had prided itself on uniting different viewpoints around AI was now deeply fractured.
Those fractures within OpenAI's leadership were bound to reach a breaking point, and sure enough, November 17th was that moment. Picture it. Sam Altman is at an event watching the Las Vegas Grand Prix when his phone buzzes. It's a Google Meet invite, only this meeting isn't just any meeting. It's the one where OpenAI's board says, essentially, you're out. And not in a soft, cushy, let's discuss this kind of way. This was immediate and decisive.
Right? I mean, can you imagine? 1 minute you're watching a race, the next minute, no job. And get this, it wasn't just a rash decision. Turns out certain resignations earlier in the year had set the stage for this coup, right? Key allies like Reid Hoffman and Will Hurd were gone, leaving room for others like Ilya Sutskever to make their move.
Exactly. And Sutskever wasn't acting alone here. By most accounts, the board had been building frustration over Altman's leadership for a while now. They believed his push for rapid innovation was ignoring the riskier implications of OpenAI's expanding AI capabilities. The board was, in some sense, holding the safety mission torch that Altman seemed to have left behind in his race towards faster growth.
Which, you've got to admit, created massive fallout. This firing wasn't quiet. Oh no, employees were furious, and we're not just talking a strongly worded email or two. There were public outcries. 745 employees, nearly the entire team, signed a letter basically saying, "We quit unless the board steps down." That's insane. It's like the staff became a mutiny force overnight.
It really was remarkable. Not something you see every day in corporate disputes. And then there's Microsoft, Altman's closest ally and a key stakeholder. They were blindsided. Their stock takes a hit, dropping nearly 3% right after the news broke. It was as if OpenAI wasn't just imploding, it was sending shockwaves through its entire ecosystem.
Yeah, and Microsoft wasn't exactly sitting around letting this play out. They immediately started voicing their support for Altman. I mean, they had billions invested in OpenAI, and probably didn't take kindly to instability rocking the ship. Plus, the whole best bromance in tech doesn't exactly scream, oh well, moving on, does it?
Not at all. For Microsoft, this wasn't just about losing a partner. The drama at OpenAI was threatening to undermine the very foundation of trust in their collaboration. And for a company like Microsoft, rooted in AI's future, this was catastrophic. But for OpenAI, it was one of the most turbulent points in its history.
And yet, with all that chaos, from employees nearly walking out to Microsoft practically breathing fire, it only took 5 days. 5 days for Sam Altman to return to OpenAI as CEO. The board's decision unravelled at lightning speed, didn't it? I mean, can you even think of another corporate upheaval that resolved in such a dramatic U-turn?
Totally. I mean, you've got practically the entire workforce saying, we're out, and Microsoft, not known for being overly dramatic, starts pushing Altman's return too. It's like this weird tech rebellion. But here's what stuck out to me: the conditions of his return. He's back in, sure, but no seat on the board. That's, calculated, don't you think?
Remarkably calculated. It's as if everyone involved reached a compromise they could just about stomach. The board steps aside, Altman gets reinstated, but, and this is important, there's an internal investigation into his conduct. The whole thing feels like a chess game, one where no one walks away entirely victorious.
Right. It's like everyone folded, but also won, kinda. And really, an internal investigation? That just screams, we need closure before this engine keeps running. I guess that's what it takes when $80 billion is on the line, huh?
Absolutely. And we can't ignore the broader implications here. Altman's reinstatement highlights deeper questions about governance, control, and corporate identities. What happens when the very structure of a company is designed to prevent what we just saw happen? It's almost paradoxical, isn't it?
Yeah, like a board that's meant to oversee safety spirals into chaos itself. And let's not forget the ripple effect. OpenAI may have mended the core wound, but what about the dented trust with employees, partners, and the industry at large? You don't just slap a band-aid on that and call it a day.
Exactly. And looking ahead, Altman himself might not have a seat on the board anymore, but he's still the face of OpenAI. Investors follow him. Competitors size him up. And if these last few months prove anything, it's that his next moves will be anything but quiet.
Oh, definitely not quiet. I mean, he's got a lot to prove now, doesn't he? Rebuilding some damaged trust, steering OpenAI through the storm, and probably setting his sights on whatever audacious goal he's got brewing next. It's bound to be a wild ride.
And for the broader tech industry, this whole saga underscores just how volatile innovation and governance can be when the stakes are this high. It's a lot for anyone, founders, employees, even us on the outside, to process. And yet here we are watching it unfold.
Wild indeed. Well, if nothing else, we've learned that even in tech's shiniest, most ambitious corners, nothing's ever simple. And on that note, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Take care, everyone.